Good morning. This is English 7 for Wednesday, March the 18th. Now, we've been talking about adverbs, and remember, adverbs must answer one of 5 questions. They must tell us where, when, how often, or to what extent. Now, every adverb must answer those questions. Look at page 167 in your book. It tells us to draw a line in exercise D under the adverbs that is modified verbs. Okay? Draw a circle around the adverb that modifies an adjective, or draw a box around an adverb that modifies adverbs. Number 1, Hudson Taylor could rarely visit his father in England. First, our prepositional phrases, in England. Our verb, could visit. Who or what could visit? Hudson Taylor. That is our subject. Hudson Taylor could visit who or what? Family. That's our direct object. Now, let's look at the words that are left. Is there something that tells us where, when, how often, or to what extent? Well, how often could Hudson Taylor visit? Rarely. Rarely is an adverb. We're going to decide what does it modify. It tells us how often could he visit, so it's modifying our verb. So we're going to underline it. Look at number 2. The baby walked toward his father most timidly. Okay, our verb is walked. I'm sorry, we left off our prepositional phrase, toward his father. Now the verb is walked. Who or what walked? Baby. Baby walked how? Baby walked where? Baby walked when? Well, baby walked how? He walked timidly. So timidly is an adverb that describes the verb walked. Now the word most tells us to what extent was he timid? Oh, he was most timid. So timid, most describes timid. So put a box around that because that is an adverb describing another adverb. Look at number 3. Jesus rather frequently used parables to illustrate a point. To illustrate a point is a prepositional phrase. Our verb, Jesus rather frequently used parables. Used. Who or what used? Jesus. Jesus used what? He used parables. Parables, then, is our direct object. The word frequently tells us what? It tells us how often did Jesus use a parable? Frequently. So frequently describes used. It's an adverb describing our verb. So we're going to underline it. What about the word rather? Remember, an adverb that describes another adverb increases or decreases the intensity of that adverb. And since rather is telling us to what extent, then we're going to say rather describes frequently. So we're going to put a box around that. In just a few moments, I'm going to give you an opportunity to finish that exercise. But first, I want us to talk about diagramming them a little bit. Diagramming an adverb is just like an adjective, meaning it's going to go on a slanted line underneath the word that it modifies. Remember, the word modify means to describe. Look at page 168. Look at the blue box. Caden yelled excitedly. Yelled is our verb. Caden is our subject. Caden yelled how? He yelled excitedly. So on a diagonal line, under yelled, we write the word excitedly. That is an adverb describing our verb. Look at the second one. Kelly is an unusually talented speller. Is the verb. Who or what is? Kelly. Kelly is, that's a linking verb, so we're looking for a predicate nominative or a predicate adjective. So Kelly equals what? Equals speller. Speller is our predicate nominative. Now, what kind of speller? She's a talented speller. So, speller is going to be an adjective. To what extent is Kelly talented? She's extremely talented. So extremely is an adverb describing the adjective. Notice on our diagram, the word talented is on a diagonal line. The word unusually is on a diagonal line, and then we connected unusually to talented. That says unusually is describing talented, and talented is describing the word speller. Look at the last one. They stopped too soon. Stopped is our verb. They is the subject. They stopped where? When? Well, they stopped soon. So soon is an adverb telling us when he stopped, soon. The word to, T-O-O, as we said yesterday in class, is almost always an adverb. And it tells us to what extent was it soon. It was too soon. So again, we're going to put it on a diagonal line and connect it to the adverb that it describes. Now let's look at I want you to look at the board and do this with me in your book. You should never speak too hastily. Now I want you to go ahead and make in your book your baseline for your subjects and your verb. What is our verb? Our verb is should speak. Write the words should speak on your diagram. Who or what should speak? You. You is then the subject. You should speak. Now, I'm going to look at my sentence and say, are there any words that describe speaking, okay? Is there something that tells me where, when, how often, or to what extent that I should speak? Well, you should speak never. Never tells me when. So I'm going to put a diagonal line under the verb because this is an adverb describing the verb. And I'll write the word never. Next, I'm going to say, how should I speak? Hastily. So on a diagonal line, write the word hastily. Now, to what extent do I speak hastily? I speak too hastily. So to is an adverb telling me to what extent. So draw another diagonal line, connect them, and write the word to. This shows me that the word to modifies the word hastily, and hastily modifies my verb should speak. Let's try number 2. Our visitors will soon be here. Again, let's put our subject and verb baseline. And what is the verb? Will be. So let's put the words will be on our diagram. Who or what will be? Visitors. Now, let's think about the words we have left. We have the word our left. What does our tell us? Well, it tells us about the visitors. Which one, what kind, how much, how many, or whose means that it is an adjective. So ours is an adjective telling us whose visitors. Our visitors. Now, do we have words that tell us about will be? The words will be. When will they be? Soon. They soon will be. Okay? And where will they be? Well, they will be here. So here is an adverb describing our verb. Remember, words that describe our subject are adjectives. They have to tell us which one, what kind, how much, how many, or whose. But if they describe the verb, they have to tell us where, when, how often, or to what extent. Make sure you have memorized these 5 questions. Okay, let's look at number 3. There's something a little different about number 3. The sentence says, always do your work neatly. Well, first of all, what kind of sentence is the word always do your work neatly? hopefully you remember from way back in the beginning of the year that it is an imperative. It is an imperative sentence. Okay? Imperative sentence means it simply gives us a command. So when a sentence gives us a command, it usually has an understood you. When you were in grade school, we had an understood you. You wrote the word you and put parentheses around it. But you're in junior high now. So now we just simply mark it with an X. So what I want you to do is just draw your baseline again. Look at your sentence. Always do your work neatly. What is your verb? The verb is do. Who or what should do? You, an understood you. So put an X for the you and the word do for your verb. Now, how do you do your work? How? Well, you should always do your work. So always tells us when we're going to do our work. So since it's an adverb, draw a line under do and write it under the word do, because it tells us how. And the question how is an adverb. Next, we have the word, we should have stopped and did this earlier, and I apologize. You do what? We didn't find our complement. Our complement is work. Okay, we should have done that a minute ago. Okay, we do work. Now we ask ourselves, whose work? Well, it was your work. Since yours tells me whose, that answers an adjective question or an adverb. Well, it answers an adjective question. And I look at the word work and say yes, because the word work is a noun. So I can write the word your. Your is an adjective describing the word work. Next, we have the word neatly. Neatly tells me what? Which one? What kind? How much? How many or whose? No, it doesn't. It tells me where, when, how often, or to what extent? Yes. How am I to do my work? I'm to do it neatly. So I'm going to draw a diagonal line under the word do and write the word neatly. Though I did not write my word neatly very neat. Sorry about that. In just a few moments, you are going to complete exercise D on page 167, exercise E on page 167, and the diagrams on page 168. Please do all of your workbook pages before you take today's quiz. There is no diagramming on today's quiz, but there are questions. You're going to have to analyze it through finding your verb, your prepositional phrases, finding your verb, your subject, and then using the questions, which one, what kind, how much, how many, or whose, to find the adjectives. Using the questions, where, when, how often, or to what extent, to find your adverbs. Please be careful. Analyze each sentence carefully. That is your homework for today. Please do your homework before you take the quiz.